Half the supplements on Amazon are lying to you. Not a little, not accidentally, blatantly. This is Biohacking News. Hello and welcome to Biohacking News. I'm Tony Wright. And before we go any further, please do like and subscribe. Well, what if the supplement you take every morning contains almost nothing? This is unbelievable. My guest today runs a company that quietly did something most supplement brands are terrified of. They bought top-selling supplements off Amazon and then sent them to accredited labs and published what they found. Wow. Let us welcome Dr. Jordan Glenn. Jordan, how are you doing?
Hey, I'm good, Tony. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on. So lots to talk about today. This research that you guys have done, I mean, it's absolutely incredible and worrying as well.
Yeah, it's when SuppCo kind of started, our whole goal was to kind of bring transparency to the supplement industry. And one of the things we really have focused on is identifying a lot of these products that are just not doing what they're supposed to do. And so, meaning that we tested a bunch of creatine gummies and found that almost all of them had no creatine in them whatsoever. So there's nothing dangerous, nothing harmful, but no active ingredient either. And so you're essentially buying expensive candy off Amazon. And we found the similar things we found with berberine. We found it when we tested a lot of urolithin A's, NAD plus, you name it. Every time we run a testing program, we find just a swath of products that don't contain any of the active ingredient that's marketed.
Wow. So these were 44 top-selling Amazon supplements. And you put it through like all these sort of like technical lab tests, accredited lab tests. And was it just supplements on Amazon that you looked at?
Yeah, and that was kind of our big. That's where we when we go to our testing program. If a brand has a storefront, we'll always go through their storefront. If they don't, we'll just buy it from Amazon directly. But everything we did, we went through Amazon because we wanted to keep it pretty controlled across the board with our ordering process. And yeah, everything went to an ISO 17 accredited lab. It's all third party done. We don't do the testing ourselves because we don't want to look biased in the process. And consistently over and over, we're taking brands that are popular on SuppCo. When people are tracking their supplements, we're looking at brands that are popular on Amazon and kind of getting a snapshot of the industry or of a category, for lack of a better word, and sending them off to a lab. And then all we're doing is reporting the results. We have no gain, we have no bias. We don't partner with brands or anything. We're trying to show people that they need to be very, very careful about what they're buying because so much of it is just not working.
Yeah. So 22 out of 44 brands that you tested, 50% failed their active ingredient claim. That is shocking. And then 20 products had between 0 and 3% of what the label promised. Isn't that sort of borderline illegal? I don't know. I mean, is it illegal or what? I don't know. It sort of sounds like it shouldn't be allowed.
Let's call it a gray area. What's not happening is these brands, these products, they don't have dangerous chemicals in them. They don't have anything that's going to hurt a consumer in them. They just have nothing. And so the legal perspective, I'm not a lawyer, but the legal perspective is it's probably a gray area. If they were trying to put adulterants in or some sort of chemical that was going to be dangerous, that'd be one thing. That will obviously be illegal. But these brands have no motivation to hurt people. They want people to continue buying their brands over and over again. And it's interesting, the creatine gummies we see a lot. We see the ones that have higher ratings on Amazon are the ones with no creatine in them because they taste better. They don't have that gritty taste. They taste more like candy. And we even found one brand that had no creatine in it, went and reformulated, put creatine in it, and the reviews tanked because people didn't like the taste anymore. And so there's this perception versus reality that's happening a lot as well with what people are buying and expecting from a gummy. That is, I think, causing a lot of these issues as well.
Yeah. I guess what happens is some brands they sort of get set up and they're experts at selling stuff on Amazon. They're not necessarily experts at creating great products that help people.
I think so. Yeah. And what we see a lot is, if you go to Alibaba, for example, you can see, drag and drop, I can put a creatine in the market in 3 days if I want to. I can go on Alibaba, I can buy thousands of them, put a SKU up on Amazon, I'm good to go. You don't know what's happening. Like, you don't know what you're buying in that regard. So we see a lot of like labels on Amazon that are direct reflected on Alibaba. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're fraudulent or there's anything wrong with them. Some are great, some are fine, but a lot of the ones we tested directly ran into those issues. Same thing, ones that don't have storefronts, where if you're not going into like a specific brand's Amazon store, you're also more likely to end up with a product that's not going to deliver on what it's telling you it's going to.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've worn a few different hats over my career, and I did sell supplements at one point, or more specifically, organic products, namely MCT oil, and had a company selling MCT oil on Amazon for a while. And we sort of tried to do everything right in terms of having organic MCT oil, glass bottles, green only plastic, all this sort of thing. Firstly, couldn't make it work from a profitability thing, and secondly, we sort of found there were so many other brands out there, not necessarily doing those steps, but just had loads of great reviews. It was very hard to compete. And you mentioned brands having no website there. One of the things that I saw in your research, 13 of the brands had no real website, and all 13 of them failed your research.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and that's when we put out our report, we put out kind of those red flags to look for, and that was one of the biggest one. If you go and you find a brand, what happens far too often is you see a brand will come out and they'll say like, oh, the average price for this is $30. We're going to sell ours for 19. No website, no storefront. We're going to throw it out because it's a low price. It's going to get, shown and bought a lot. You can make a lot of money really quickly, especially if you're selling a popular, ingredient, and nobody's the wiser. And I think that's where that gets really tricky. In your case, brands are struggling a lot of times when if they do everything right. Amazon is not the place you go to buy the highest quality product. It's the place you go to find a low price for something that you feel like you need. One of the reasons SuppCo exists is exactly what you're talking about. Brands are having a hard time differentiate. If you go on Amazon, you see thousands and thousands of berberines or creatines, and how do you ever know what to pick? That's why we exist, is to help people understand, like, how do you identify a quality brand? Quality brands cost more for a reason. And so we can help pull together certifications, testing, all that kind of stuff to show people this is actually a quality product. This is one worth keeping an eye on, or maybe avoiding altogether.
Yeah, well, it's good to meet you. I mean, that's one of the really interesting things about doing this podcast, the fact that there are so many potential products that people can invest in this space. And once you get into sort of longevity and biohacking, obviously a lot of the best stuff is free anyway, getting outside, going barefoot, having a swim in the sea, whatever it might be. Maybe not where you are at the moment. I know it's pretty cold right now. But then there are a lot of chances to invest, and it is really hard to work out what's good and what's not. And that is where we need shortcuts. And so sort of trusted brands and trusted people obviously really helps. But you sort of hope that when you go to Amazon, it is okay. You sort of almost assume if it's on Amazon, it's okay.
Yeah. And, I think what people mistake with Amazon is like the quality of a product or the ingredient of a product versus like how, like the purchasing power of that product.
Yeah.
So if I go on Amazon, and we saw this a lot with products that we tested, a number of them that were top rated or Best Buy or Amazon's Choice, that little label, a lot of those failed our testing. And the reason people see this Amazon's Choice model and like, oh, this is a good product. Amazon likes this product. What that really means is a lot of people are buying this product. It is not an indicator of quality. It doesn't mean that this product's been tested. It doesn't mean that this product has been validated or anything behind it. It just means a lot of people have purchased it. I think there was a creatine gummy that had been purchased 30,000 times in the last month that I saw when we were when we were testing, and all across the board, it failed. It failed, but it was being purchased so much at a low price that people kept buying it. And I think that is the big kicker, is that Amazon is not an indicator that a product is a good supplement. It means a lot of people are buying that supplement. That's a very specific differentiation.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in a second, I'm going to ask you about Brian Johnson. But before that, you know who Brian Johnson is, don't you?
Of course.
We can't escape Brian Johnson. But before that, just on what you were saying, the products that failed were 38% cheaper and claimed 87% higher dosages. Do you think they are even doing the research, or is it all sort of getting a little bit, they think they're putting it in, but somewhere in the formulation process, something's going wrong and it's sort of not getting measured? I mean, what do you think is actually happening there?
It's impossible to know. It could be everything from bad actors that know exactly what they're doing from the beginning to the end, and it
Yeah.
could be really good intentioned brands that just don't know what's happening in the manufacturing process. Maybe that their suppliers is cutting corners on the back end. And they don't know about it. It's truly impossible to know. The only thing that we can know is what happens when we test it on the back end and see ultimately what the end result is. But whatever's happening, they're ending up with nothing in the bottle.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. Right then, so Brian Johnson, everyone who listens to this podcast knows who he is, and he's talked quite a bit about supplements, of course, and has his own brand, Blueprint. And I have noticed that quite a lot of people who follow this podcast have tried that. They've also tried IM8, David Beckham's brand, or certainly they've got a David Beckham stack. What do you make of those supplements and supplements that in general sort of combine everything into one tablet or one scoop or whatever it might be?
It's a good question. I think there's probably two schools of thought on this. You have the I don't know what I'm missing, so I'm just going to take it all and see what happens. To me, I view that as like a Band-Aid for a problem you don't know that you have. I'm a little bit more this way. I prefer to kind of do the blood work, understand like where are my gaps, and be a little more targeted with the things that I'm taking. The one thing I don't do is proprietary blends. I don't like blends. I don't like not knowing how much of anything I'm getting. I think that's a pain point for me personally. A lot of people like them. Again, there's nothing necessarily inherently wrong or dangerous with them. It's just not the direction I go. I think these blends, I think they're interesting. I think they're, none of them really have long-term data that truly show exactly what's happening in the back end of it. But for the most part, I think if you have the time and you are investing, the work into it, I think it's better to put together a bit more of a targeted stack for the things you need versus this kitchen sink approach and just hope something hits.
Yeah. So the blends, I mean, Athletic Greens or AG1 is one that is a blend. I'm going to sort of say what Brian Jensen said about that. You don't have to react if you don't want to, because I'm aware, obviously, you're a competitor, so it may be sensitive, but he said AG1 by Athletic Greens is overpriced, overpromised, and lacks transparency. And it is a proprietary blend. So it's quite difficult when you've got hundreds and hundreds of ingredients going into a scoop. But when you think about it, it is a bit weird when the consumer doesn't know exactly how much of each thing is in that scoop.
And I think it comes down at the consumer level at that point. I don't think AG1's a bad brand. I have no problem with AG1 as a product or a brand. My personal bent is I prefer to know exactly how much I'm taking, but I know a lot of people that really enjoy that AG1 or whatever greens powder they might be taking because whatever, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like ready for the day. There is something to be said about the fact of routine, right? If you wake up in the morning and you make a healthy choice and you take your greens powder or even a multivitamin and you leverage that and you make healthier decisions throughout the day because you started healthy, more power to you. I've got no problem with that whatsoever. It may be working. AG1 does a lot of research. They put out a lot of papers. They have a whole science team behind it. So I wouldn't necessarily just say because it's a proprietary blend that it's bad. I don't think that's fair. But I'm not a fan of proprietary blends. So like I said, I think there's two camps that people can sit in. Obviously, Brian Johnson's going to say what he's going to say. They have their own differing opinions. They're selling competitive products. As an unbiased person in the space, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I think as a consumer, you have to make a decision on what makes the most sense for you.
Well, that was very diplomatic. Well done, and then in terms of sort of like a whole rounded approach, I mean, certainly I agree, not taking stuff for the sake of it is a good idea. And yet, I mean, I've got a 6-year-old boy. I do like to give him a multivitamin. Another brand I like is Seeking Health, and I think they do a lot of testing. So we give him a Seeking Health kids multivitamin with methylation in it. But again, I don't think there's anything quote wrong with him, but I just think it's quite nice to supplement his diet, which usually consists of pasta, because he's not that adventurous, with a few vitamins in there.
I agree. I have a 17-month-old, right? And we don't do vitamins yet, but he loves pasta. He loves Cheerios. Yeah. And I can guarantee that he's like most, at least I'll speak for America. Most Americans, we don't get enough vegetables or nutrients in our diet to begin with. So a daily multi, again, it's one of those things where, is it going to hurt you? Absolutely not. Will you need maybe 20% of what's in it, sure, but that might do the trick. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. So you're a doctor and a PhD. How did you get into this world?
Oh, kind of through the back door. I am an exercise physiologist by training, and I did a lot of work in aging, pretty much working with people. I worked with a lot of senior Olympians, people who were in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, trying to get bigger, faster, stronger, but still trying to fight that paradox of aging. And we were looking for natural ways to help improve performance. And I was working with women who were triathletes in their 60s trying to compete at high levels. And we started looking at supplements: creatine, beta alanine, citrulline malate, things that they could take legally, they could be drug tested for, and it'd be okay. And I just became fascinated with this concept of legal ways to really improve performance. And honestly, it just dovetailed from there. Then it becomes, what are ways that we can improve chronic diseases, whether it be I worked at Alzheimer's and a heart disease for a long time. And then you go down this thread of all these products that are failing testing, and you see how weird and wild the supplement space becomes, and it becomes a little bit addictive.
Oh yeah. And so senior Olympians, is that different from normal Olympians? Is that Olympians who've grown older, or is there a senior Olympics?
There is a senior Olympics, yes, and it is exactly
great.
that. They are people. The way it's defined is people who are competing at high levels past the age at which world records are typically set. So for swimming, you're a senior Olympian at the age of like 30, 35. But
Wow.
for other sports, it can
Yeah.
be 40s, 50s. Swimming, people are so young competing at these high levels. And so it's very different. Tennis tend to be much older, things like that. But yeah, it's really fascinating working with people in their 80s who are running track. It's just like it puts a whole perspective on life that you don't see otherwise.
Yeah. And I'm now in my 50s and sort of put quite a bit of thought into sort of operating at a high level and being inflammation free, something really important for me. Is there anything that you sort of seen consistently time and time again sort of seems to work, or just is a trend with these senior Olympians?
The trend, and we talked about this at the beginning of it. It's not just supplements. It is they are routine. They are disciplined. I had people coming into my lab at 4 a.m. because they start training at 5 a.m. and they don't miss training. And so they're like, I'll come before, but I'm not messing training to do it. They eat flawlessly. Like to stay healthy as you get older, it takes work. It takes, for most people, if you could be genetically like very well inclined and do fine, but for most people, it takes work, it takes discipline. And that would be the one thing, if I was to say, like, everyone that comes in consistently, it's just discipline. They just really have their routines, they stick with it. And they have fun. They're not necessarily crazy with it, but they're not weekend warriors. It is a lifestyle. It's not a chore for them.
Yeah. So, right, I was hoping for some more. Go and take this, or
it's
go and do that.
What's the constant they say is consistency is better than anything else. And supplements is no different, right? Like if I could take 2,000 milligrams of berberine once a week, it's not going to do anything. But if I take my 500 to 1,000 every single day, now my triglycerides might move, my cholesterol might change. Like it's consistency with supplements, with exercise, with nutrition, all across the board.
You mentioned creatine a few times from a personal perspective, and I know because I posted about this a bit. I find it very frustrating because the opposite to a lot of people, I'm trying to put weight on in the gym, and I find it very hard. I've got a sort of tall, lean, beanpole-like figure that just find a like stick man basically. And when I take creatine, I just don't find I tolerate it very well. Is that something that you could look for different brands, or is it just something that some people struggle? I mean, with me, it's normally the gut. I just don't seem to tolerate it that well. I've tried tablets, I've tried different powders and so on.
Yeah, so I'm also a tall beanpole kind of guy. I've never ever been able to put on weight in the gym. So I gave that up. I gave that up many years ago. So most people tolerate creatine pretty well. For those that don't, the number one solve tends to be taking it with food, and that with a lot of supplements, people tend to get GI distress with it. And so if you're not tolerating it, taking it with food can be really helpful. It sounds like you've tried like splitting the dose up and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not like past that, like it's such a well tolerated supplement, there could be something else happening that's worth keeping an eye on. Have you tried doing it with food?
I have, and I've intermittently, it's something I've come back to again and again and again. I mean, I'm sort of fairly unique and a bit different. You know, for 25 years there was histamine intolerance going on, and I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
And that's now something that I've figured out. So I'm constantly reintroducing things back in. I mean, I've just started eating bananas again. I haven't eaten them for 5 years. It's wonderful
Oh
to
my
eat
goodness.
them again. So creatine is the next thing that I probably need to try again, particularly because you and many of the guests who come on are also really excited about it in terms of brain health, as well as, you know, potentially putting on more muscle.
Yeah, I think that's the next frontier for creatine, to tell you the truth. Like I was the chief science officer at a Alzheimer's company for the better part of a decade.
Mm.
And when you see like chronic diseases that we don't have cures for, like that's a big one. And so the fact that I wouldn't say that creatine has proven itself in that arena yet, but we've seen early data, we've seen human data, it's strong, it's showing real changes. I think what we don't understand yet is how much. Like we see 5 grams a day, we see people saying 20 grams a day,
Yeah.
and they're like it's worth the GI distress because 20 grams a day is going to keep you. We have no
Yeah.
idea. I think
Yeah.
what we know is that the mechanism of action for creatine in brain health makes sense. We've seen good data showing that it can improve certain cognitive outcomes. And now we have a lot of work to do to figure out how much should people be taking, how long do they need to take it for, what's the long-term trajectory. I think that's the next frontier, but I think I wouldn't like stamp that yet, but I'd be pretty confident that we get there in the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, and that sort of thing is really exciting. It's sometimes frustrating that with products like creatine or vitamin C or whatever it might be, and I've got a friend who works in the cancer space and interprets data in the cancer space, and it's a great frustration to him that sort of functional approaches that can complement existing chemotherapy type approaches to cancer just are not researched in the same sort of way because there's not a lot of money behind it and they're not
There it is, yep.
proprietary sort of medicines. And that's what's really nice about this research that you've done around supplements, because it's definitive. It doesn't need to be a double-blind, placebo-controlled study. You've taken 44 supplements off Amazon, you've sent them off to the test, and you've just got the results back. That's brilliant.
Yeah, I'm a true scientist at heart. I'm a big fan of the double-blind RCT. I will run them and all that jazz. But I think we get a little caught up sometimes in everything having to be so perfect that we let perfect be the enemy of good. And it's to your point. Sometimes we can just take a bunch of products, send them off to a lab, and as long as we're transparent about how we're doing it, as long as we're not putting and this we didn't involve people, there's no risk involved. All we're doing is trying to simply tell a story and let people know what's happening. Research can be that too, and I think we get a little bit too caught up sometimes. And let's do the perfect study versus let's just get some really good information out there that can help people.
Yeah, and then in terms of your company, obviously, I mean, I guess a lot of people will be listening to this and thinking, right, well, what do they do? What supplements do you guys sell that are good? And do yours pass the tests? I'm sure they do, but
But the beautiful thing about SuppCo is we are a supplement company that doesn't sell supplements. I always say I have the best job in the world as the head of science at a supplement company that we don't sell products. So I'm not beholden to a brand. I'm not beholden to, I don't have to go sell AG1 or all these kinds of products that are out there. I get to just talk about them. SuppCo exists to help people understand what supplement, for what reason, at what time, and how much. So if you come to us and you say, I want to get bigger in the gym, or I'm not sleeping well, we'll simply say, okay, let's help you identify a magnesium or a glycine. We'll help you build your stack for whatever your issue is that you're looking to solve. And then from there, we'll help you understand how to pick the right brands. So we built what's called Trust Score, which takes 29 different attributes, manufacturing practices, certifications, all those kinds of things, and turned it into a 1 to 10 scale that says, hey, this is how you identify a quality brand versus a brand that is not transparent or providing less quality for you as a consumer. And that is what SuppCo does, is help people understand what supplements and then how to make the right decision when you go to buy supplements and simplify that process for them across the board. And the fact that we don't sell supplements means we get to stay unbiased in the process altogether.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, and for you, that's great because you're not out there flogging supplements. It's just something completely different.
Exactly.
And so, how do you guys make money then?
We have a pro version of our app. So if you came and say like, I need help with sleep, we have a sleep stack that's built out that will work for most people. But there's in our pro version, you can look at our smart scheduler to know what time of day to take your supplements. We can look at a lot more of your personalized data and give you a stack that's personalized for you versus more of a generic stack. So we make money off our pro model. a lot of our features are free. So like everything I mentioned in the beginning, just understanding like how to look at trust score and pick the right brand, that's all free for users. And we have hundreds of thousands of users that are free, that are on the free model. But we have a pro version, and that keeps us afloat, that brings money in, and
That's great.
allows us to
Yeah.
stay unbiased. But we don't take
Wow.
money from brands to promote their products. We don't, we have brands come to us all the time. Hey, we'll give you all this to put us on top. We don't do any of that. It's completely independent.
Really? Really? Wow. That's brilliant. And I think it's an area that can only grow. I mean, I've been doing this podcast 10 years, or almost 11 years now. And for the first 9, it was called something different. It's called Zestology, but it was pretty much the only biohacking podcast, certainly in the UK. And now there's quite a lot of them. So I thought, well, I'm going to make it a bit more obvious and call it Biohacking News by Zestology. And I've just found this whole area, whether you call it biohacking or longevity, it's just expanding so quickly that we are both in an exciting area to be in.
I think so. I mean, I think we've rebranded this concept of just like healthy aging to be biohacking or longevity or wellness. And then these days, I feel like if you slap the longevity coat of paint on something, you can charge 50% more for it. But I think we're in an interesting space right now because we've turned sitting in a hot tub to a longevity event. To your point, we've turned going outside in sunshine into a longevity event when these things have been around forever. But then you look at some of the more avant-garde of the new things. Like in my space, urolithin A is a supplement that has gotten really, really big in the biohacking of the longevity space. I'm a big fan. I think the early data are strong. I think we need to see some long-term data. I take it every day. I think the safety profile is strong. So I think there's a bit of let's temper the longevity a little bit, but then there are some very real new things that are coming out. And I think that's where the line over the next few years will start to separate a little bit of these are the things we've always done to these are the things that actually are starting to change the space.
Yeah. Now, listen, I've had some of the top longevity experts on here, including David Sinclair, and I don't know that I've ever heard of urolithin A. What is it?
Oh my goodness. So urolithin A is in short, it's a product built, it's a supplement built for mitochondrial support to just help with with longevity, to help with reduce long-term inflammation, help with recovery. Mitochondria are at the center of so many factors that happen in the body. I can't believe that it hasn't come up on your podcast before. I'm sure there are people listening that take urolithin A. It's expensive, and I think that's what it's a very new product. A couple of years maybe. The data on it are very strong. But if you find, and we actually did a testing series with SuppCo on urolithin A, we found some that were around 20, 25, $30 that were all fail. And then we found some that are around $100 plus a month that pass with flying colors. It's expensive to make right now.
Right.
It's hard to scale, but it will continue to get more popular in the future.
Okay, well that motivates me to come to your app anyway, because if I might start taking it, I'll come to your app to see what you recommend.
We also have a research center just to learn more about it. So if you're like, I want to learn about urolithin A, you can go there, you can type it in, you can learn everything you want to know about it without having to pay a dime.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. And what about peptides in sort of professionally or personally? Are you interested in peptides? Do you take them?
So I don't take them. Incredibly interested in them. Peptides. So I'm a little bit. I would say I'm more as in the biohacking world. I'm a little more cautious. But I think peptides are kind of the next frontier for us. I mean, insulin's a peptide, GLP-1's a peptide. These things have proven themselves time and time again to do well. What we're looking at now is just these peptides that haven't necessarily been tested as well as those other ones. And so that's where things get gray, is we almost guaranteed these things are going to work for a lot of things. We just don't know quite how yet, and we don't know quite how much we need to take yet. And then we start stacking them together, and who knows what's happening. We hear like Wolverine stack or these other things that where people are taking together. Things get a little, for me, I'm a little more cautious on that front. But I honestly think peptides, they're only going to get more popular. We can't shun them. We can't try and move away from them. People are only going to continue to take them. I think we need to set up a model for people to take them safer than what's happening right now and get out of this gray internet market. But it's definitely, give it a couple of years, and regulatory changes, I have no doubt, are going to come and make them easier to get access to. They are coming. And I think they're going to work. We just don't quite know how yet in a lot of ways.
And as you say, there are so many peptides in so many combinations and we don't really understand. But there are a lot of people who would listen to this who work in the peptide industry already, and they would say, actually, no, it's a lot safer than you think. It's well regulated. And in a lot of cases, it is already quite well tested.
So I agree, and I think there's a difference between going to like a compounder or somebody who is working with these and sourcing them from a very legitimate place, and me hitting Google, going online, buying a for research only peptide off the internet, and then popping it in myself. Those are very, very different use cases. So there's a lot of people that are comfortable with the latter. I mean, there was an article that came out not long ago of people getting free peptide shots at a conference and people got sick and things went wrong.
Oh God.
You have to do it the right way, right? Like we're not talking about taking a pill. We're talking about injecting things into your body. And so I think I would have no problem walking into a peptide clinic and getting informed, working with someone who does this on a daily basis versus me buying them on the internet. I think those are very different use cases.
Yeah. And increasingly, you can take them in pill form as well as injection form. And that's really interesting. And I've started to dabble with that a little bit, mainly with BPC 157. And I have to say, like, I was interested in it for inflammation. And I don't really feel like it's made that much difference in terms of the inflammation that I feel in any joint. But I certainly think with the gut, I think it's very powerful.
And I think that's exactly
interested
right.
in more research, you know.
Yeah. And, that's what you see that ubiquitously. Like the main reason that people don't take or that pill form is not as popular is because it's poorly absorbed. And so with a lot of the new absorption methods coming out, whether they be liposomal delivery, microencapsulation, things like that, we are able to get some of this stuff into the body better. The digestive for oral BPC 157, I think, is by far one of the most like comfortable places that we can say like this is working really well. I think we got a ways to go on the inflammation piece. I think the injectables still are far and above better for that piece of it. But if we figure out the bioavailability of oral peptides, we're in good shape.
Yeah. Pretty exciting. So what about you and your daily routine? You're involved at such a sort of microscopic level with the supplement space. What about your own daily routine with supplements and everything else? Obviously, I do this midweek podcast where we sort of like to look at our daily routines. What's yours like? What's your morning routine?
Yeah, so morning routine, it's not going to be so avant-garde as you might think it would be. I every morning I take a berberine. I've got I focus on my cholesterol. I've got high cholesterol, so I do a berberine morning and night, 500 milligrams of each. I do fish oil. I do a vitamin. I live in the Northeast. I live in Boston, so I do a vitamin D because especially this time of year we're not getting outside that much. I do urolithin A, the one I mentioned earlier. That's part of my morning routine, and then I do creatine. Every morning, creatine as part of that as well. The other thing that I do, it's not necessarily a supplement, but I take 2 to 3 tablespoons of chia seeds every morning, and that's like my fiber supplement. I definitely don't get enough fiber in my diet otherwise, so that's kind of my own version of getting that in. But yeah, my morning routine is, aside from urolithin A, it's a pretty standard kind of health stack.
Yeah. And then what about non-supplements? I always like talking to parents, and especially in the early years when my boy was sort of 1, 2, and 3, I was obsessed. I was like, how do you find enough time to do 10 minutes of meditation a day or whatever it might be? But what does your routine look like apart from the supplements?
Yeah. So it's, I exercise every day. And even if it's 20, 30 minutes, I usually am shooting for 30 to 45 minutes. Like I said, I have a 17-month-old, so that doesn't always happen, but it's going to be something. It's going to be some sort of movement, 20 minutes even. My wife and we're both very, very big on getting exercise in. So we do a good job of partnering together to make sure that both of us get that opportunity. And then 10 minutes of, I would just call it mindfulness meditation. Everyone has their own word for it, but just kind of disconnecting, sitting in a quiet space, no screens, eyes closed, just really, really just kind of trying to reset. Usually that happens at night after bedtime, but it's the supplements, a little bit of exercise, as much as I can get, and then my 10 minutes of just disconnected mindfulness, just to kind of reset the day.
Well, that sounds pretty good. Pretty good.
It's pretty standard. It's pretty as much time as I have these days to sneak that stuff in.
Yeah,
no,
exactly. And even, by the way, here's some reassurance for you. Even when they get to 6, you can still have your sleep interrupted.
There we go. Good to know. That's good to know.
So I'm optimizing. A little bit of GABA at night for me goes down a treat. and a
like it.
weighted blanket. Oh, and then we're sorted.
Okay,
That's
okay.
good.
We sleep on an 8 sleep. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but we sleep
Oh
on
yeah,
a
I mean, I've never tried it, but I know a lot of people in this world love it. Do you think it makes a big difference?
So I'm a huge fan because like
Yeah.
my wife and I sleep on different temperatures. So like mine
Mm.
can be colder, hers can be hotter. You know, we can raise it up and I don't necessarily care so much about the metrics, but the temperature regulation and all that kind of stuff is it to me is a game changer.
That's
It's
awesome.
very much helped my sleep.
Yeah, I bet. I bet. Jordan, so good to talk to you. It's been great fun. Where can people find out more about everything you're doing?
Yeah, so App Store, download SuppCo, SuppCo. If you're outside the US, SuppCo.com. Our app is only available in the US. Web platform is available all over the world. Come check us out.
That's awesome. Awesome. Listen, great to talk to you. Thank you so much for coming on. Let's do this again soon.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.